Hi, good morning, everyone. Okay, so just gonna do a quick introduction of ourselves. My name is Richie. I am the head of personal training at Harbourfront, our Harbourfront branch. I am type 1 diabetic. It's been 12 years since my diagnosis, and I've been in this industry for since 2016, about close to 8 years already. So I started off pretty much dipping my toes into fitness through things like powerlifting. That's pretty much what I was surrounded with when I started going to the gym and picking things up. In the end, the main goal for myself was really to sort of show myself that, despite whatever condition I might have, I can still function and, get strong and build muscle just like any other person is able to. And that was the main thing that I wanted to prove to myself, and it's been something that I've been doing and consistently doing for the past many, many years. And from there, my goals, priorities sort of changes, and that happens all the time, all right? Even with yourself, one moment you might be focusing on just fat loss, next moment you might be focusing on just getting stronger, all right? So goals and priorities shift along with your own, as life goes on, right? You start a family and all that, things start to take priority over others. And for myself, it was more to being able to be much stronger and also look physically fitter and better. Of course, I think pretty much I was at the age where how you look was very, very important. And I was a very, very skinny kid. I was I started off my fitness journey at 47 kilograms, and here I am at 75. So it's been a long ride. So I got into bodybuilding, and it's been about 3 to 4 years of that now. I've did my first competition early last year, and right now I'm just focusing on building myself up and just casually dropping by to compete once in a while. Hopefully, that's the plan at least. But the main thing right now I'm focusing on is just helping other people get towards their goals and helping other trainers as well, fulfill their maximum potential and be able to deliver the best amount of the best service they can, for our clients. Yeah, and yes, I'll pass it on to Jade.
Cool, thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Coach Jade. I have a bit of an interesting sort of entry into the fitness industry because I spent the first 20 years of my career in retail leadership, brand management, retail training, etc. And COVID was a shift for me when the world sort of looked like it was all going to, I don't want to say end, but change. It was kind of the catalyst that I needed to leave an industry that I feel was no longer serving me, and that I no longer had a lot of passion to exist in as well. And so I had just finished my personal training certification, and I started taking on a couple of clients, and I realized as the more and more women that I worked with, the more underserved I realized that women were in the industry as well, and just generally in the world. A lot of conflicting information, a lot of different conflicting messages around food intake, around how we should take care of our health. And it really inspired me to dig a little bit deeper into the areas that I was super interested in, which is particularly nutrition as well as movement. And so I recently became a certified nutritionist, so that I can really, really focus on, I guess, the key areas that are going to help people improve the quality of their life, which are typically improving nutrition and improving movement. And yeah, that's all from me. So I guess to zero in on what today's talk is all about, it's really about how can we live longer and how can we live better. It's not just about being super science focused on ticking all the optimal boxes and looking for the most detailed ways that we can kind of optimize our life. It's really about doing the basic things exceptionally well and consistently. And so today we're going to really explore the key areas that we think are going to be able to help you maximize longevity and just general quality of life. Particularly today we're going to talk about metabolism, fasting, and how strength training can improve those areas. So a few statistics. Physical activity diet influence 70 to 80% of longevity. It's a big myth that our genetics dictate how long and how well we live. It does contribute, but we know for a fact that our lifestyle decisions and the things that we do consistently through our life, not just once we get to an age where we care about our health, but really from a very young age as well. These things are really what's going to impact how well we age and how well we feel and how we're able to enjoy our time on earth with the ones that we love and and for ourselves as well. So the fact is genetics will influence longevity, but up to 80% is determined by our diet, our exercise, and also by our metabolic health. So over to Richie.
Right, so next we're going to talk a little bit more about genetics versus lifestyle. Just continuing from what Jade has went through. So I think there are three main things we look at when it comes to talking about genetics and lifestyle, as well as longevity. All right, and on that note, all right, first one we look at is really what your metabolism is. Basically, metabolism is the process of producing and breaking down of energy. All right, you might have heard of the term anabolism, catabolism. Basically, that's your body's processes in utilizing these energies, whether be it from your food that you consume or from your body's own storage, which is either the fats, body fats, or the muscles, right? And next is strength training. So basically, the whole principle of strength training, right? It helps your body, build up the muscle mass needed to support a very healthy metabolic function. All right. One thing I like to tell my clients, you want to eat more, you build more muscles because your muscles consume more energy, right? So that gives you more leeway to eat more food if you enjoy that. And it also helps prevent the age-related decline, conditions like sarcopenia, all right, which we might touch a little bit more on that later on. And also, lastly, it's fasting. So a lot of times we look at fasting and we hear about that. And the most important thing when we hear about the word fasting, we want to think of it as a tool in our toolkit that we can utilize in order to optimize what we are trying to achieve, whether be it to get into a caloric deficit and whatnot, right? And it's not just like the be-all, end-all, unlike what you would be seeing in most places, okay? It's not like the ultimate solution, because if that solution does not work for you, then it's not the best solution for you. It might work for other people. And I think that's something that we want to drive across as well, is that something that works for person A might not necessarily apply to you. It really, really depends on your context, whether or not you can adapt it to your lifestyle, and whether or not, your lifestyle is structured in a way that allows for that to help you, right? Because if you're someone who doesn't benefit from it, or if you have specific needs, then that changes the entire context of whether or not it's effective, all right? And so moving on.
Okay, so what is metabolism? As Richie said, basically it refers to all of the chemical reactions in your body that keep you alive and functioning, okay? I think a big misconception is that our metabolism works against us. It is not the case. Our body is literally doing everything it can to keep us alive and to keep us functioning as well as possible. It's our job to ensure that we do the things that we need to do to keep our body functioning the way that it needs to, okay? Yes, so in a little bit more detail, what does it include? It includes two main processes. So breaking down food energy, catabolism, and then using that energy to build and repair body tissues, anabolism. Can't speak. Anabolism. We'll get it out eventually. So your metabolism will determine how quickly or slowly your body burns calories and how it uses nutrients. So this is a really important point, okay? The best way for us to improve our metabolism or our resting metabolic rate is to build a little bit more muscle. Okay, why? Because as Richie said, muscle is a much more active tissue than body fat. Okay, it's going to use more calories, it's going to allow us to eat a little bit more, and it's going to help our body function better. It does a lot of other things as well, like helps regulate blood sugar, etc. too. So, muscle. If there's one highlight. So a couple of interesting facts. Metabolism uses about 50 to 70% of calories for basic functions. So that means if you were to lie horizontal on a sofa and not do anything, you will use you'll use a certain amount of calories just to exist, okay? Aging, in fact, does not make this process slow down. So you'll often hear this false truth. I was going to say old wives' tale, but that's not really an awesome term to use. That I'm getting older, my metabolism is slowing down. Your metabolism does not, in fact, slow down until you reach the age of 60. Okay? What does slow down is us. Okay? Typically, when we get a little bit older, sometimes we may have more resources. So, for example, you may have a car that you may not have had 20 years ago. So you're driving from location to location. Hence, your activity goes down. You may have some more disposable funds. So you're eating out. You're eating maybe more rich, more decadent food. You might be drinking a little bit more. All of these things essentially are slowing us down a little bit in terms of how we take care of our body as well. So again, I think the highlight here is that it's really important to understand that what we do for our body really has a huge impact, and our lifestyle and our food choices are so critical in terms of how as well as exercise rather, will have a greater impact on how we age and how we feel as we get older. And there's so much that we can do, even if you do find yourself in a state where you feel less than ideal, to work on those key areas to improve your metabolic rate and in turn your longevity.
Right, so going into strength training, since we were talking about muscles, right? So in a way, strength training really helps in the long term, especially increasing. So one thing I like to say is that it really increases your body's resilience to a lot of things. So you might have heard of some people, they hurt themselves really easily. I've known people who have gotten a slip disc in the spine just from bending over to tie the shoelace. All right, these small little things do happen, but what's most important is that strength training plays a very critical role in that, because it sort of increases your exposure to these loads in movement over time, which in the end, as you get stronger, you become more resilient to them, and you're less likely to experience these random occurrences of potential injuries. But it also helps to improve your overall health outcomes, as Jade mentioned earlier, right? Muscle mass, with higher muscle mass, it does increase your decreases your risk for metabolic diseases. Your metabolic diseases refers to things like diabetes, stroke, heart disease, right? And it pretty much helps you to be a little bit more, helps you to utilize the food that you're consuming much more efficiently for energy, right? So basically, strength training sort of helps to lower down the amount of muscle loss as you age, right? The thing is that, as mentioned earlier, that it's really our habits that sort of causes us to lose on muscle mass as we age, right? We get less active. I like to use this term, use it or lose it, right? So you have to give your body a reason to hold on to that muscle mass. So the less we use our muscles, the less active we are, the less our body needs it. And then as a result, we start to lose them, right? So yes, so one common myth you might hear, especially from people who are, maybe something I commonly hear, maybe from people above the 30s, all right, is that they're afraid to get too bulky after lifting weights. It's a very common thing us as trainers hear a lot. And I think I wish that were so true. I wish it was so easy to get bulky from lifting weights. It requires many years of consistency and, in terms of training, in terms of diet, and it's not as easy as people would think. But in the end, you are in control of how bulky you get, right? So, one thing I always share with my clients, if they're afraid of that, we always look at how your body looks like from many standpoints, right? Your body fat measurements, how your visual outlook is, and we take progress pictures. And, once you reach a certain point where you're like, hey, I don't want to get any more muscles. I feel like, it's starting to look a bit bulky in the arms. I still want to, look a bit slim and stuff like that. I don't want to get too huge. Yeah, you can always put a stop to that, right? Because that's where you make adjustments to the diet to ensure that it's aligned with your goals, to ensure that you don't continue putting even more weight or muscle mass. And then so in the end, we're in control of what we do. We just need to put a little bit of extra effort into looking into these small little areas, because they can go a really long way. And so okay.
Strength training. Thanks, Richie. Strength training as we age. I think there's a lot of maybe fear for people as they get older, because we start to feel a few more aches and pains and things like that. And as Richie said, when we don't use something, we tend to lose it, or it feels uncomfortable, okay? But what we need to really understand are the huge benefits that we can glean from strength training, not just as we get older, but at every age, okay? Bone density is the biggest concern for people as they age, particularly women, okay? Osteopenia, which is basically little tiny holes in our bones. So the bone density gets like degraded from lack of strength training and lack of calcium in the diet, and lack of vitamin D, okay? It's a huge risk. When we do, if someone is diagnosed with something like osteopenia, it can actually go to a very further extent, and you can end up with osteoporosis, okay, which puts you at more risk of fractures, small bumps and small injuries causing very, very serious health injuries as well, okay? So something I always like to say, and I said it in the last presentation as well for anyone that was there, is that our bones are like diamonds, and they perform really, really well when they've been put under pressure. So strength training helps add pressure to our bones. It helps them get stronger, okay? Joint health as well. So strengthening the muscles around the joints also increases stability and reduces the risk of injury, okay? So if you're someone who likes to run, if you're someone who likes to do any kind of other, less kind of just gym strength-based stuff, joint health is super, super important as well, okay? We want strong muscles, we want very, very flexible and strong joints as well, so that it can support what we need to do. And the last part is balance and coordination. And this is something that we typically see with a lot of older clients that come in, and some younger ones as well, I'll say, that their balance and their coordination really is a struggle, okay? This is super important to sort of cultivate in terms of a strength training program, because it will help us reduce the risk of falls, okay? We've all seen older individuals trying to get up from the bus or even standing on the MRT and a little tiny shake, and we feel so, so unstable, right? Balance and coordination and cultivating that skill as part of our training program will really, really help us mitigate things like falls. And when we mitigate things like falls, we're gonna put ourselves at less risk of things like fractures, bone damage, etc. Okay. A really interesting statistic as well that I found online was that like 30% of older individuals over 70 struggle to walk, take stairs, and have like constant joint pain. Okay, and that's a really frightening statistic because all of these things can essentially be mitigated with proper strength training and consistent movement. Okay, so some interesting facts: strength training definitely boosts bone density by 1 to 3% annually, and can cut all-cause mortality by 23% when done twice a week. And if that doesn't like inspire you to get moving, I don't know what will. A huge myth again is that strength training is only for young people, and I think what we see now with the beauty of Instagram and the beauty of social media is we see so many more older people getting involved, and older people, you know, and I mean like 60s, 70s, 80s, building muscle, getting really strong, deadlifting, squatting, doing all of these things that say like 10 or 20 years ago was unheard of. And finally, a couple of facts. So strength training is absolutely crucial for maintaining muscle, bone density, and mobility as we age. And again, to drive the point home, it prevents frailty, accidents, and also means that if you do find yourself in a state where you fall over, if you've got strong bones, you're less likely to have fractures. If you've got a bit more muscle mass, you're probably more likely to recover from that injury quicker as well. Okay.
So on one of the last few notes that we want to make is about fasting. So we've all heard about fasting. Okay, so it's popular, and it has been getting popular over the last like maybe decade. I like to think of some people use the term fasting as like a buzzword to, you know, really capture the attention, because it's really like the hot thing right now when it comes to dieting and, you know, when it comes to your metabolism. But it's not really the magic cure for anything, right? So what instead, as I said earlier on, you know, it's a tool in our toolkit, right? It helps with, you know, calorie control, all right? So it helps to limit the amount, it limits the window of calories that you're consuming. And as a result, you consume less calories, right? Same thing with other kinds of diets that you're seeing, you know, keto and all that. In the end, the main thing that we benefit from is the calorie restriction that it gives, right? But the way I see it is it gives people structure in that sense, right? Because instead of just telling you to, hey, you know, drop your calories, yeah, easier said than done for a lot of people. But if I give them a structure to follow, hey, eat between this time and this time, right? That's the idea of intermittent fasting. That easily gives you sort of an objective and something that's much more easier to follow and adhere to rather than just winging it and just like, okay, I'm just gonna eat a little bit less here and there. It might work for some people, but it's not for everyone, right? So yeah, so in the end, what fasting also does, it helps to sort of reduce the oxidative stress by about 20%. So oxidative stress basically is the sort of imbalance of your free radicals and your antioxidants in your body, right? Which sort of is related to your cellular health and age, right? So one of the myths, as I said earlier, intermittent fasting is better than a calorie deficit. It's not. It's like comparing apples and oranges in a way. It's not exactly the same thing, and I wouldn't really say one's better than the other. In the end, intermittent fasting is sort of a calorie deficit method. But yeah, it only really works if you're in a calorie deficit. I have clients who have come to me and tell me like, hey, I'm gonna do intermittent fasting, 16/8, so I'm only gonna eat in that 8-hour window. And then when they log their food and I look at their food log, they're just cramming their entire day's worth of food in that 8 hours instead of cutting away what they otherwise would have eaten earlier in the day, right? So then at that point, it sort of takes away the effectiveness of what intermittent fasting is. But that's pretty much the idea. In the end, it's just a tool that we use, but that tool might not be the best fit for every single person.
So maybe I'll kind of round off what they're saying and link it back to some of the longevity stuff. If you're looking for a protocol, so what are sort of best practices for how much you should strength train, what your calories are, and what other elements are being discussed around longevity today? Starting with, I think the first most important thing is the repetitive point that was coming across is consistency. And it's actually a lot simpler than all of the noise out there. So 1, train. 2, watch what you eat. In terms of the protocols for those two, on the training side, the best practices for kind of minimum viable success is 2 strength sessions, 2 cardio, and 1 peak heart rate. Now those are kind of 5 sessions in a week. When we say 5 sessions, it's not necessarily 5. The 2 cardio sessions are zone 2. And zone 2 means you should be able to take a call, do an email, and not be exhausted. And that can be done pretty much anywhere. If you can get out on an evening walk, you're good to go. So, or walk your dog, essentially any of that works for that. The one high heart rates that you need a week, that's where you look at gyms or high rocks or doing those finishers, sled pulls. It's basically in a week you need to get your heart rate into that red zone for about 10 to 20 minutes. And how and when you do that, whether you do that at the end of a personal training session, at the end of your gym sessions, you need that once in a week. And then twice a week is where you need to get the strength coming in. So I've done my blood test. I've looked at Mito, I've looked at Novi. I did my blood test at Bummingrad. In 3 to 6 months, I got my testosterone up twice, back to what I was at 28-year-old levels. In terms of other myths around strength training means I'm going to smash it, come out and be exhausted. I have no ACL, I have no meniscus, I have no cartilage. And I had the best results this year from going through something that was easy. And if it's easy and consistent in terms of I'm not looking at 4 or 5 sessions a week in terms of strength training and going all out, I could be consistent with it and keep going in and out. So there is this other fear of, do these protocols hurt me more than benefit? They actually don't if they're done right. So I think that's the difference between pushing yourself to the extent that you get an injury versus pushing yourself that you see the results over the 3, 6, 9 month period of time. We were also discussing earlier before the session started, when you look at the longevity noise out there, do you need supplements, vitamins? I would say 80% is in your control. The 20% of the kind of the drugs and supplements, vitamins, they can help you, but much like even in strength training, if your diet is not right, you can't they say abs are made in the kitchen. In the same way, the supplements and whatever is being done, can it help? Yes. Do the GLP-1s have some results? Yes. Ozempic, does it help? Yes. But you're now relying on an external tool, and we don't know what happened in the long run. Also, when you do most of these tests and longevity companies that are out there, they're really kind of the shock and awe to give you a result and say, oh my God, look how close I am. I'm 40, I'm 50, but my blood age is 60, 70, or I'm on the verge of having medical issues. They're really to shock and awe and wake you up to get you moving. And most of the interventions you'll see the doctors prescribe are still fundamentally what's in our control. And I think an element of today is to remove the fear and say all of you kind of know what to do. Sometimes it's just needing to have a helping hand or just show up, and it's not as extreme or difficult, and you don't have to go all out every day, all day. So that's essentially where it is, but we're happy to take questions and answer them, or Richie and Jade are as well. So yeah, if there's any questions, maybe we can open it up to the floor.
What would be one of the best measure you record on longevity? Is it like VO2 max, HRV? What would you look at? Or is it, as you mentioned as well, the blood samples and have a full spectrum? But will you have like 1 or 2 or 3 measures that will really give you a good idea?
I think what's important is when we talk about longevity, we want to think about in what context are we looking at in terms of longevity, because longevity can be a very, in a way, broad term and it can cover many, many different areas. As you've mentioned, VO2 max can be one of those things, but if ultimately your goal is not really related to your cardiovascular sort of like fitness, then maybe VO2 max might not be the best tool of measure in terms of determining your, in a way, longevity. All right. For example, I might have a client who's, in her 60s, 70s. Maybe VO2 max might not be the best option for her, but instead we look at things like, optimizing her training, joint health, things like that, which can contribute more into sort of better sort of what's that term? Quality of life, in that sense. Yeah. So I think to me, when we say longevity, I think quality of life. You want to be able to live longer, you want to be able to be stronger, you want to be able to eat the foods that you love and still be healthy and not go through all these potential health issues that might come up. And in a way, it's sort of reducing the risk greatly of all those things, right? That to me is what longevity stands for, but depending on the individual, longevity might mean different things.
So I would say, adding to that, essentially it's 3 things that we look at, or I look at, just as a consumer, having gone through the training at T-Squared. One is VO2 max, but as Richie said, it's for a certain age group. VO2 max is supposed to be related to heart disease. Essentially, your cardiovascular system's good. Your heart disease should be lower. It should show up in your blockages and so forth. But it's not necessarily guaranteed, but it is an indicator. The second big indicator and why we emphasize on strength is grip strength. So if you've got really good grip strength, there's 2 things that come out of it. As you're aging, when you hear of, oh, I was biking, I fell, I got a fracture, it's probably because your muscles couldn't brace, which means your joints took the impact. And so as you age, also as you're aging, your muscle mass is invariably going down. So if you build a large base when you're younger, it'll hold on. The last thing is, if you've got great grip strength, the only way you do it is by exercise, which means the cross benefits that are coming through exercising show up. So most exercise scientists will look at VO2 max and grip strength. Those 2 will then translate over to your blood work invariably. And in your blood work, it's usually you're looking at your typical, what's my cholesterol level, what's my LDL, what's my HDL. I personally look at what's my testosterone. The one caveat though is, and why we said there's noise around the blood work, when I went to my doctor and I said, hey, should I go on testosterone replacement therapy, TRT, because my test levels were in the 350, 400 range. They said, do you have any symptoms? I said, no, I'm active on my personal life, I'm sleeping well, I've got good energy. They said, well, your levels might be low, but maybe because your muscles are great at absorbing your test, you don't actually need a lot of tests. So I just went back to a better diet, sleeping earlier, and my test levels went up, but I didn't have symptoms. So all I would say is, if you're trying to peg your longevity to a certain blood marker, it's not, I wouldn't do that. I would just look at the blood work as an indicator on whether things are moving, but look at either VO2 max or grip strength, and that you can just judge by yourself that when you go to the groceries, are you able to carry more, or are you having to have someone help you carry them, you know? And that will kind of translate over naturally, and just do it that way for longevity.
I think in terms of quality of life, it's a huge point as well. As everyone has mentioned, longevity means different things for different people. You can have the best blood work, you can have amazing VO2 max, but you can have a terrible quality of life because you're not enjoying the things that you want to enjoy. You may not have time to spend with your family, you may not have time to rest, you may not have time to do all of the other things that are really, really important in cultivating a full life as well. So I think it's great to have metrics, but it's also really important to consider what are the measures that are going to make your life better for longer as well. And that might be time with family, it might be time to yourself, it might be, particularly for women, as they enter their 40s and 50s, how you're coping with perimenopause and menopause if you're experiencing any symptoms as well. So there's a lot, it's a very complex question, I think, and there's a lot of things that you need to consider, and it can be quite an individual kind of journey, I guess.
Really interested to know about your blood work situation. So, and what your experience was. So you kind of mentioned your experience about identifying kind of low testosterone and what you did to change it. How did you go on that journey? What did you learn, and what was the outcome for you?
Yeah, so when I went through the personal training sessions here, what I did was I actually pared back the intensity of them, just so I could be more consistent on that. And so I went in with the longevity noise of, I'm going into my 30s, scientifically testosterone should drop. Testosterone reduction is linked hypothetically to increase in medical diseases. I want to fix that before anything happens. They said don't go on TRT because you're going to end up being somewhat reliant on it, possibly, or the risk of being healthy as I am and not having symptoms was not worth the possible side effects that come with it. So instead they said go back and improve your diet and exercise, which I was kind of surprised with because I was an active individual. What I was not active with was consistency on my off-day cardio, and that's the zone 2. And then on the PT sessions, I was going all out for 2-3 weeks, getting exhausted, taking a business trip, and then because I'm mentally exhausted, my body was craving sugar, and then going back to it. So what I saw was, if I was a bit more structured and said, look, I'm not looking for a 6-week, 8-week transformation, I just want to do this for my lifestyle, then my results, I didn't mind them coming over 6, 8, 12 months. So not much changed in, well, let me take that back. A lot changed in my blood work and how I approach things. But on the surface, I was still doing the same amount of training sessions. It was, all I learned was don't chase, and I also had an injury. So there's this big fear of, I can no longer deadlift 150 kgs. If I'm lifting 70 kgs, I'm gonna get weaker, I'm gonna get out of shape. None of that was true. And I think when they say in the lifting world, leave your ego at the door, it honestly, what mattered the most was form. So how you lift, not how much you lift. Tempo. So when this progressive overloading, which is a big theory of every time you go to the gym, make something harder, it's reps or weight, or just how long that movement lasts. Everything is overloading yourself. When I went back and did my blood works, within 3 months, my testosterone were higher. In terms of diet, so I had this habit of, and why we're talking about intermittent fasting is skipping meals, and then I would invariably at 10, 11 p.m. when I'm watching TV with my partner, I'm reaching for the chips packet. If I don't go to bed by 11, that midnight supper, I'm done. What has helped me though now is I make it a point not to fast, and I make my meals a lot more balanced. So it's amazing that if you eat a bit of carbs and you eat a bit of fiber, your body's kind of satisfied holistically, that it's not craving something. So this is what I mean by, I changed a lot, but it was really simple things where it was not trying to force myself to lose weight, but going, look, don't be scared to eat the bread slice, because eating a slice of bread now will mean I'm not going to eat 3 later. And my results came in 3 months. Supplements, none. No change in supplements. A little bit of vitamin D. I added a vitamin C tablet every morning, but I did not stock up on 50 items from iHerb because I wasn't deficient in any. So for my blood work, I was not deficient in a certain level, and my blood works didn't show I had anything out of range. But I just wanted to pair them back to when I was 28, and my main thing was, can my healthier habits bring my testosterone up? And essentially, being consistent with the training, not being afraid of what I eat, and then on the meal prep side, I did this, and which is where I learned from it, by getting the meal prep from T Squared. I knew what I was eating on the macros, so I don't always do meal prep, so you don't have to do meal prep, but understanding that my macros are balanced in every meal, I went, oh, okay, I can eat a bit of fat, I can eat a bit of carbs, and now I do that myself. I'll have an avocado toast in the morning, I'll have a shake in the afternoon. I'm not worried about it, going, okay. And the last thing I'd say is, I stopped beating myself up over a cheat day, and I didn't track my calories or my strength on a day-by-day basis. I went, in a week, what am I eating? So if you have a business trip or an evening out in Dell, cool. Don't, own it, and then just know that the day before and the day after, either work out or do your cardio or cut the calories on those 2 days. And you'll notice that if you have a big meal on one night, you're not hungry the next day, so fast the next day. And so intermittent fasting is, just be aware of the week-long intake is what we look at it.
I think that's a really good point. I think a lot of people are really unaware of what they're eating and how much they're eating. Typically, I find a lot of women feel like they are overeating, and they may be eating a lot of less than ideal choices consistently, but restricting their main meals. And I see it with, I'll say 95% of the clients I work with are restricting main meals to the point that they leave themselves so hungry that they do exactly what Varun was doing at 3 or 4 o'clock, and they start ransacking the office pantry and eating chips and cookies, and everybody's smiling. So it sounds like a familiar story. And what typically works for a lot of people is teaching them about how much they should be eating and what types of food they should be eating as well, and making sure that those main meals are satiating enough that they're not actually hungry and then looking for other things that are not serving them any purpose, any use, I guess. Yeah.
Brought up perimenopause, and I think it's something that I'm feeling I'm starting to go through now. Do you have any recommendations on, outside of the 5 sessions that you mentioned, is there anything specific that women should be looking to do to try and kind of manage the process?
Yes, absolutely. I think the first thing that you can do is make sure that you're managing your stress levels, because quite often and I know it sounds like, I have 3
kids.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it sounds unreal. Okay. Stress is a part of life, and we're always going to experience stress. In fact, we need to experience stress to a certain point. If we didn't experience any stress, then we wouldn't be bothered by anything. We would have no fight or flight reaction. We would never react to anything. So a little bit of stress is normal. And to kind of think that we will ever exist in a world where we can eliminate all stress is unrealistic. Okay? But how do we manage that stress? Right? And management of stress is what's more important than kind of reducing the stress. If you're someone who's highly stressed and you're reaching out for food to manage your stress, then that's perhaps a behavior that you may want to address. Okay, and that's what I typically see. Stress, food, like excessive food consumption as a result of stress, poor sleep as a result of stress. So they're 2 areas that make a huge, huge, huge impact. Strength training, absolutely. And a little bit of cardio as well, okay? So the impact we know that zone 2 cardio can have on us can actually help reduce stress levels as well, okay? It's unlikely that if you're taking a walk, you're gonna be feeling exceptionally stressed as well, okay? How that works in terms of your bandwidth and your time is something that needs to be, you need to think about how it can fit into your lifestyle. Not everybody has the same 24 hours, right? And this is a fact. From a perimenopause and menopause point of view, what we suggest is making sure you have adequate sleep given your lifestyle, that you are strength training 2 times a week, and that you're taking care of your nutrition as well. And the nutrition is making sure you're eating adequate protein and making sure you're eating adequate fiber for gut health. Okay, so these are the main areas.
The last thing I add on the stress management, men, women, whether menopause, premenopause or not, there's a big movement into saunas and ice baths. I do them twice a week. So I would take a step back, like intermittent fasting. Is there an underlying purpose? So I would say mindfulness, and to relieve stress. If you try and just sit there and they say, count to 10 before you say something back to someone, try counting to like 1,000. So whether it's meditation, whether it's a long walk, or in my case, I do the sauna and ice bath as my checkup because I can't take my phone in there. And so it's my way of just de-stressing. Too much stress will also cause you to hold weight for men, or for myself at least, weight in my gut. So I'm doing everything, I'm eating right, I'm training, but the stress levels and cortisol levels means that I'm holding a lot of weight from the stress. So for me, it was sauna and ice baths. Ice baths are great, and there's 2 protocols. One is shock and awe, or like a blood detox, which is under 3 degrees, 1 or 3 minutes. I do 10 minutes at 8 or 10 degrees, but that's for my inflammation in joints. But a note on that is if you do ice baths straight after workouts, there is some case saying the way your muscles grow is they break, the inflammation comes in to repair the muscles, they get repaired, they grow. So ice bath is kind of contradictory to actually longevity and growing your muscles. And this is where you kind of need to understand the knowledge that do it, there's a purpose for it, but maybe do it on your off days, or if you're doing it, or do it as a recovery, or don't do it right after a workout, do it a 6-8 hour gap in between. Or if you're doing it for mindfulness, okay, then understand that you're not looking at it as competing on stage as Richie is, but you're doing it with a purpose for stress management or a sauna or laying down. So again, these are some of the toolkits, but just understand the reasoning behind them and maybe what and when to use them around your own routines.
I think another thing about stress is, so on that note, I think one thing that we want to ensure is that we're able to sort of balance what we're doing in terms of mitigating stress. A lot of times it's very easy to say like, okay, just don't be stressed, it's easier said than done. Very, 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 like for example, you have 3 kids, most people, they have stress from work and all that. And then we use other means as an outlet to sort of relieve that stress, going for a run, going to the gym. But it's also very, very important to have a balance in all of that, because all of these causes another kind of stress in your body as well. Our body there's this thing called allostatic load or allostatic stress. Basically, it's just the compounded stress from different factors, from mental stress, physical stress, and working out, lifting weights, it creates a degree of physical stress on your body. And it is through this physical stress that we cause adaptation to occur, and that's where, that's how we gain muscle and all that. But when we sort of focus too much on these things as an outlet to reduce our stress, we instead reduce the stress in one area mentally, but physically the stress also goes up. And that's a little bit counterintuitive to what we want to do as well. So it's very important to sort of listen to your body, because most of the time our bodies will tell us what it needs, all right? If you find that, you're not recovering fast enough, you're sore for days, even though mentally you feel great, but you're not recovering quick enough, you're probably creating too much stress on the other end. So it's important to sort of take days to yourself to really recover, all right, and just reduce the total amount of work that you're doing in general, and just focus on spending a day out with your family, going for a walk, something to really unwind that is not really linked to any high degrees of exertion mentally or physically. And that overall in the long run, having a little bit of that thrown in along the way will take you a very, very long way in terms of like longevity in that sense as well.
I think that consistency is the big piece as well. And if you can't, it's important to understand that we can look at optimal numbers and we can say 2 or 3 times a week of strength training is ideal. But if you've got 3 kids or you have a full schedule and you are taking care of everybody's meals and you've got a million things on the go, maybe 2 to 3 sessions is unreasonable. Maybe you can do 1. And if you can do 1 consistently, it's absolutely better than forcing yourself to do that max and stressing yourself out or doing 0. So it's also about being like relative in terms of what makes sense for you, and what is not going to cause additional stress, and actually that is going to give you some benefit as well. Yeah, I really like to use the term harmony as opposed to balance, particularly with the clients that I work with, because many are mums, they work full-time jobs, they have a lot of things on their plate, right? Finding harmony in your lifestyle is more important than finding balance, because if we always seek balance, we may never achieve it, because we're not always going to give everything the same level of attention that it needs. But if we can find harmony and we can get everything to kind of work together in the context of our life, it can be much more fulfilling. It can allow us to be consistent, and it means that we won't fall off the wagon at any point from exhaustion or from feeling like we're not doing enough or we're doing too much.
I'm just going to add in, so I know we spend a lot of time going to work and stuff. Do we set up time, me time? So let's say you're spending 80 hours working, and then if you don't take out 1 hour for yourself, or 30 minutes a week, so that's, you're asking for 2 hours just for your me time, if it's the 30 minutes for yourself. So you can do anything and you want that 30 minutes or 1 hour of time for me time. That could be your gym time. You can block that in your calendar. So I say, I'm not going to take any call, I'm not going to listen to anyone, this is my me time. I'm going to go for a run, read my book, go for swimming, or just take a nap. So that me time will help you get to what you're looking for in your longevity lifestyle. So we all have a busy life. Like I know my husband works for the cybersecurity company. He has a global role. So he was having the same issues with a cortisol build, and then he start his day crack of dawn at 6 a.m. His last call would be at midnight, not having enough sleep. So his workout was suffering and whatnot, so I gave him an ultimatum last year. You have to make sure you block time. So he changed his training time many times with the trainers, So we all just said, okay, come on, then you ask team to get in. So he started at 7 a.m., didn't work out because the call started at 7 a.m., then 8 a.m., then moved to 11 a.m., then got to lunchtime, then 2. So now finally, his set time is 4 to 5, where he's done with the call to Asia and then New Zealand and Australia. Europe is waking up, and then US and North America is sleeping at that time. So that time no one will bother him unless something locally comes up to meet the people. So do you have the next picture? I'll show you so I can show it to you. So I'll send it to you.
Just quickly, I think the point that Afshan made is so amazing, that we can be flexible with our approach. Okay, just because we start doing something one way, it doesn't mean you have to keep doing that forever. If it no longer works for you, it no longer serves you, change it up. Speak to your trainer, ask for, or speak to yourself more than anyone, and adjust the program. Okay, we're going to go through so many seasons of life. We'll have different goals through different seasons as well. And so being flexible and having that flexible kind of growth mindset around how you approach your health is just as important as like every other thing that we do in life. Okay.
Well, the most important, right? Like it's most important because that's those demands that shift during the day. Super hard, like the self-discipline required to tell somebody not to put a cold and diarrhea at night. It's super hard because deadlines and all those demands are really
those will
difficult.
always be there, but then they're not coming when you're saying, hey, how are you doing? Can we take the time off for you, and then you can just rest a bit. But then when you're sick in the bed, they're still demanding to do this work done because the deadline is coming up. So every year we have a team photo shoot in June. So last year he wasn't ready, but this year he said, okay, I'm going to join the team to do the photo shoot. So that's my husband and I. We are both of us are over 50. So I'm 55. I'm going to be 55 this year, and my husband is going to be 54. He just turned 53. So with all the tough lifestyle and whatnot, you can do it. You know, it's all about discipline, and then no one can do it except only you.
I think
So-
you.
And then my journey started, I was paralyzed for a year when I was 13. I could not walk, and doctor told me I won't be able to walk again. And let alone, if you can, just walk, just slowly, no exercise, no heavy lifting, no high impact. But then after my second one was born, so I started training at 35, and I started 35. Slowly getting better, and then in this, with my missing one of my vertebrae, which T10 is missing, so my T9 and T11s are fused together. I cannot put too much pressure on my back, but I lift very heavy at the gym. So out of that, and then I have slip disc lower lumbar, slip disc on my neck. So then my knee injuries. This is all degeneration is happening because of one back injury in a young age. So could be something is missing, but I personally don't, as Varun says, we don't rely on the supplements if you don't need it. So all these nutrition, you can get it with the balanced food. So food is a very important thing for us, you know, and I'm post-menopause now. Then all these things are going on, and I used to be very anemic. My iron level was 3 or 6, could not go higher, and my hemoglobin was always 9.5. But all with the food, my hemoglobin are normal now, 14, and then my iron level is great. I'm no longer on my iron pills anymore, which was lifetime. I'm free of migraine. So I can give you the list of things. This is why I told my husband I want to start a company where we can help people out, not only for visually, for holistic way, so they can live longer life. This is why we are here, to show you that yes, it is possible, because it's my personal journey where I have gone through, and I can show you from day 1 to day now. And my girls are 22 and 24 now, and I managed to raise them without any pain. Yeah, thank you.
Any other? Okay, I guess we'll wrap it up. If there's anything else, just reach out to, or you can come to us after, or reach out to us at T-Square Lab, and we'll take it from there.
Thanks very much.
You can
Thank you.
call
Thank you.
us, you can email us, you can text us anyway. And any questions, no string attached. We are always trying to help our clients out. Then a lot of people, they just personally reach out to me, and then they ask me questions. And then there was one client, one person I was just connected to her for 2 years. She's in very health issues after health issues, and then she said, Akshan, what should I do now? And she said, I'm so bad, I never come train with you. I said, don't worry about it. I'm not looking for sale or anything. We are here to help you, guide you to get a better life, healthier lifestyle. So then I gave her few core exercises because she just has some stomach surgery done. So she is keeping me up to date with her health, how is she doing, you know. So that is the goal. So and then our clients also, when they get to this level and they are satisfied, they become influencers, you know. So they can start helping their family members out. So just recently you will see Corinne's ad is going on. She had shoulder injury with the surgery and the knee surgery, and then with only 3 months of her training with Renee, she managed to lose 15 to 18 kg weight and 15% fat. She looks fabulous. Now she's helping her daughters out because her kids are so influenced by their 50+ mom. And then the funny thing is, she was saying when she was doing 20,000 steps, she was taking her dog out with her. Her dog lost 6 kg weight. The doctor was like, what happened to him? I said, no, I was walking the lamb. So it was a wow, funny thing happened. So, you know, and then when she went to see her doctor for her scheduled appointment with the orthopedic surgeon, they said, Corinne, what are you doing? Your recovery is impressive. So she said, nothing, I'm just going to this gym where I'm training and my trainer is helping me strengthen my business. I said, fabulous, can you just connect me with that gym because the recovery is important after the surgeries, and if you get a right guidance and the right exercises regime, so then you don't need to be seeing physio all your life. Yes. So physio sessions should be few. Then the rest you have to make sure you find a very good trainer for you, which can guide you for life.
The last thing I'd say, as part of these talks, there's one every month, the next 2 months, and they're all on different topics, and some are with different partners. So we're bringing in blood work people to speak alongside. The next one, I believe, is Oscar. The one after that might be AT Medical. So part of the giving back is, yes, first one we started, and then we're bringing partners to have topics with us. So just keep an eye out. I think this is Mandela's Wellness Wednesdays that we're powering just to keep bringing knowledge for the rest of the year.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.